Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Level 30 Games Podcast. I would love to be able to start the show without doing that same exact tonal introduction, but here we are. My name's Tom. Panel of folks here today. Same cast as the last time. If you didn't check out our last episode, do it, because I'm going to say this, it actually came out really nice. So I want to welcome Joe and our friend Drew back to the show. So we got a good, hearty discussion today on, some end-of-the-year stuff. 2023 is done. Thank goodness. Let's get it out of here. Joe, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So humble you are in your introduction. And Drew, thank you for being here, too. Coming all the way back.
Thanks for having me for a second time. Who knew that was going to happen?
I feel like I'm indebted, and I owe you something substantial for making the trek all the way here.
You do. You owe him the mileage at the IRS rate. We talked about this already.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here today to discuss what was 2023 in gaming. Because it was, dare if I say it, it was a hell of a year for games.
Really? Were there any releases this year?
I mean, copious amounts of releases. Some of them were even really good.
Copious amounts of remakes, too.
Yeah, you know?
It's every year for the last few decades, honestly.
And probably the decades to come as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those games sold really well, which means they made a ton of money, which means that we're going to see this endless spiral of games that keep getting re-released. It's a good thing and a bad thing. Well, look, the goal for today is to talk about some of the games that we played over the course of the year and just gush about things that we enjoyed or highlight some things that we didn't like. And so I figured we'll start at the top of the calendar and work our way down, because I think the one thing that gets lost in a lot of the Game of the Year conversations is pretty much anything that comes out before June, because I feel like all the heavy hitters that resonate in these Game of the Year conversations, a lot of that stuff from the beginning of the year tends to be forgotten sometimes. And there were some bangers this year that you kind of go, oh, wait, that came out this year? Yes, it did. Probably like 4 months ago, and we all tend to forget.
I have a quick aside, which is...
I love quick asides.
Game of the Year awards. Everyone was raving about Spider-Man 2 because it had just came out, and then it won not a single award.
Yeah, it was like, had 7 nominations or something.
Yeah.
And won 0 of them.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I actually felt pretty comfortable passing on that title. I didn't even pick it up, and I loved the first one, and Miles Morales for that matter.
So I just think it can be a vice to come out early in the year and then also late in the year, because it's so new. It's like, do you know if this is the game of the year, or is it just the newest addition to all these excellent other games that people are just raving about it at the time? So you have to take the time to actually think about, is this going to usurp whatever the actual game of the year is from earlier?
True, and the release calendar can be pretty dangerous if you don't time it right, because Spider-Man 2 also came out on the same day as Mario Wonder. So you run the risk of not being part of the conversation or splitting the conversation, so you're getting half of what you would have normally, or maybe in this case, I don't think anyone really talked about Spider-Man 2 very long after that game came out. I think Mario kind of held the attention for an extended period of time there.
We can say that's true for Joe, too, because how many games did you beat this year?
2.
I just want it
2
on record.
full games. I think that's impressive. To be fair, one of them was as long as 6.
That is true.
This is true. I mean, we could have fit Drew, you're the math person. How many Mario RPG length games could we have fit in the time it took for us to beat Tears of the Kingdom?
Oh.
I mean, at least 12 or 13, right?
Easily, yeah.
So I think you're okay. How many? Well, here we'll move through. All right, here's what we'll do. So I got list of notable releases month to month. We'll kind of go through the list and hit some stuff. And I'm hoping that I'm not the only person talking, because I feel like my track record is I play a lot of things and I never finish most of them. But if they're really good, then it tends to keep its hold on me a little bit longer. And I think the problem for me this year was that there were so many games that took dozens of hours to beat. There just wasn't a lot of time. I don't know if you guys checked your year-end reviews. I'm still waiting on the Microsoft and Sony one. I know the Sony ones went out, but I haven't gotten anything yet. I got my Nintendo year-end review.
I didn't get one.
You didn't get one?
No.
Oh.
I didn't get one for Sony.
Oh, maybe they didn't. I thought they did. I thought I saw some
They
screens
should,
floating
because that would
around.
be helpful. Because I went through my profile when you were like, we're going to talk about Game of the Year. And then I had to be like, well, which of these games actually came out in 2023?
Right. And they give you a recap month to month. And I know I played Switch for 8 hours in September, which means something else took the attention away at that point, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is. So we'll move through our calendar. We'll talk about things as we go, and stuff catches our eye. We'll talk a little bit about the Game Awards a little bit later, and we have our own version of the Level 30 Game Awards. Kind of, not really. We slapped this together last minute, but Drew had some good
Is it
insight.
slapped together?
Um,
Is it at all together? You make it sound like it was completed.
It's
There-
together.
It's together enough. It's together enough. We'll see. Joe, you're gonna be put on the spot because
Oh, don't do that.
Drew filled out the rundown, so he has things that he knows he can
Oh, there's a
contribute to.
rundown?
Yes.
Don't let people know there's a rundown.
Of course there's a rundown. We mention the rundown all the time. You mentioned how you don't do the rundown or read the rundown or look at the rundown or run or go down.
Um,
Can we please back up? Control Z, Control Z.
I know.
Control
Can you
Z.
cut that?
I think we're gonna have to leave that one in there. This podcast is rated T for sexual themes
And comic mischief.
and comic mischief.
For anyone listening, no, never mind.
Yeah, I think it's best we just let that one go.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll take it to the top of the year, and again, these were games that I just thought were more notable. And my one asterisk is here is that I don't have a lot of indie titles here, as they're just not something I don't play a lot of. I do, but there were again so many big games this year that I didn't indie as much as I normally do. Drew, you tend to indie quite a bit.
Yeah, but the amount of games that come out now, like if you look at Steam and what comes out indie-wise, there's easily 50 games a month. So it's impossible to keep on top of it.
Yeah. I'd be willing to wager, too, this was a year since we had so many big AAA games that I think after a lot of the work from home COVID situation, I think a lot of stuff got back on track as far as production goes, and there was just a streamline of everything's coming out all at once.
I forget if I sent you that chart recently that it showed you how many games came out per year.
No,
since,
I don't think so.
98. It was crazy because 2018, 19, 20 was like 1,500, 2,000 games, and then it's petered off. And I think it's because of the AAA titles that they're like trying to hone in on more of those than all of these like individual companies.
Well, yeah, also because like there's no AA games. Like very rarely is there this kind of in between game, right? Like the budgets and the manpower that goes into making this stuff, it just takes forever to do it the way they want to do it. And so, you know, if a company puts out 3 or 4 games a year, that might be a lot for them, right? So
It's a lot for me.
yeah, I mean, that's
I
fine.
didn't put out any of this year.
Yeah, you got
Really
to step it up there. Start putting out some games. All right, speaking of games, let's rewind the clock back to January.
Oh God, I can't think that far back.
Well, it's a good thing I have a list here in the rundown.
Oh, but I can't tell if that list is real or not. Oh God.
The list is very
the
real.
list is real.
The
I
list
looked
is
at it.
real. Notable releases. Drew, you had mentioned the Dead Space remake that came out in January.
Yeah, there's always a game like towards my birthday that I'm like, this is all I want for my birthday. So
And that was it?
yeah, that was it.
Was it a worthwhile remake?
The graphics alone are so much better than they were. I don't
Wow.
even remember when it came out.
360, right?
2008? Was it like 15 years ago?
I want to say that sounds about right.
And the gameplay is great. Like, it's a game that you can play over and over again, and I like those survival horrors.
And that came out slightly before the. There's a game that came out that was kind of similar to Dead Space, right? The something protocol, Callisto Project
yeah.
Protocol, something to that effect. Have you played
came
that
out
one as
last
well?
year. I played, yeah, that was more recent. I played that, and I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I don't think it fared as well. I think I ended up picking it up for like $5, and it sits in the cellophane. So there we go.
course it
It's
does.
gonna be a common theme for all my games. So yeah, Dead Space came out in January. Hi-Fi Rush, which was made a huge splash on Xbox Game Pass. There's a game that Drew and I picked up because we have a feeling that our personal tastes would like this more than critics did, but that's Forspoken, Square Enix game. Joe, I know you're a big Fire Emblem person. Did you get a chance to play Fire Emblem Engage?
Wait, I'm sorry. What gave you the idea that I'm a big Fire Emblem person?
I thought you like did all the Three Houses runs and the DLC and all that stuff. Was that was not you?
Yeah, that was the other Joe. I did play it, and I put
Three Houses or Engage?
Three Houses.
Oh.
I did not play the other one.
Oh.
I apologize for ruining the momentum of this episode, but no, I didn't play it.
All right, you'll really have to like flag me down when we get to one of the 2 games that you played this year then.
It'll be June.
Oh, I got a few months
June.
to go.
I beat 2.
Oh, okay.
I've played like 4.
Oh,
And one of them I just started last week.
it's a 100% increase for those
50% win rate.
doing the math. Yeah, there we go.
See?
Drew, are you into Fire Emblem at all?
I used to be on 3DSs.
Oh, yeah.
And ever since they've put them on Switch and like Wii's, I don't touch them. I don't know why.
Okay, I think this one would definitely speak to you. It's very much more akin to like just a higher res, more involved narrative of like the portable handheld version of the games, which was great, and the tactic element is awesome, spot on.
There's also voice acting, which would very much help it speak to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but the voice acting is also
3 for 3.
I know that was a joke, but it's a good segue into mentioning that the voice acting is one of the most cringy elements of the entire game.
Most of those translations are always cringy.
Yeah, well, the performance itself, and it got to a point later in the story where I was like, I'm gonna skip all the cutscenes. The tactic gameplay element of it is so good that it was worth kind of pushing through some like really cheesy story, but yeah. That and the main character just reminded me of Colgate toothpaste because they just split them in half and swapped the colors on different parts of the body. It was really weird. I don't know.
It was all downhill when, I forget which game it was, but Donnell, he's the guy who has a pot on his head, becomes the best character in the game, and you can't top that.
What game was that?
It was one of the Fire Emblems.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, he was like a side character very early on, and he became the most powerful. And he had a like kettle on top of his
He was a
head.
pothead.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So the pothead became the most powerful character. I wonder how. Sorry, Joe. I was just trying to live up to the standards that you set, humor-wise,
even
for
worth
the
trying,
episode.
man.
I know. All right. Well,
Very high bar.
let's move on to February then. Another remaster, but at least one. This was a game for a franchise that we're all hoping has promising things in the future. Metroid Prime Remastered came out, which was a remake of the first game in the Prime series. Originally came out on the GameCube.
How good was the graphic increase?
Oh, no, it was really great, and it feels amazing to control. It just, the 3D map is a little wonky, and I got to a point where I'd put it down for too long of a period of time, and the network of, okay, if I go here and then here and then here to get there, that was just eroded from memory. So I was like kind of I'm going to go in circles for 40 minutes before I figure out where I should be going, and I don't know how to get there, and it's kind of one of those games where I think when you know well, you can probably beat it in like 12 hours, 15 hours, but I'm going in circles too many times now. So I made it further now than I did when I was younger, but really good. I think if you know it well enough to play it and kind of know what you have to do, I think it could be a really enjoyable time.
And don't put it down for more than 2 days.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be a game that you don't play with other stuff because it can get very confusing very quickly.
Yeah, the map felt like old school video games where you had to like write stuff down and be like, this is how I get to this path. Because it's like they took a 2D world and made it 3D, and then the map alone is like, where's the exit to this like biome that I'm in, because it doesn't really signify enough.
No, it doesn't at all, because at least Dread for the Switch, their map gave you, hey, when you go to this elevator, it connects to this part, and you can see that visually, as opposed to having to hop between this like honeycomb shaped vague overlay of this is this color world and go to the it was kind of a pain in the ass. And of course, when you're rotating the map in like maybe on the GameCube, you're like, this is so great, but perspective is so very confusing.
It wasn't so great back then either.
Okay, yeah. Well, they tweaked a lot, and the controls are just substantially better as well.
Nice.
I never played Hogwarts Legacy, but it was in the top-selling games of the year. Just not for me, and that author can go F herself. Drew, I don't know if... Damn it, I did it again. Joe, sorry.
You could have just directed it at him then.
Your names are so different,
Not
but
the-
yeah, it's just not even the same. We got a Kirby game that popped out in February. Return to Dreamland. You're our resident Kirby expert.
That was a remake of.
Oh my god, it was a remake.
Yeah.
I guess the return would have been the key word there.
And what's funny is I had just played the one it was a remake of, like the original version, I guess, as it would be known, like a few months prior for like the first time. It's a fun game. It's very simple. I didn't play the remake because I had just played the original, but like it's a Kirby game, you know. It's simple. I enjoyed it. I think it's fun. But it's pretty short. Like the first time you play it might take 2 days. The second time you play it, you're gonna burn right through it in a few hours. I don't know what else to say about it.
Okay.
It's a fun game. Yeah. No,
Yeah, I think we hit this stretch, and up until I think we both played the one that came out last year. Forgotten
Lands?
something? Is it
Yeah.
Forgotten Lands?
I think that might have come out 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. I think up until that point, I had been dismissive of Kirby games, saying like, well, they're great and they're mechanically sound and they're fun, but they're also just really easy and or short. Forgotten Lands kind of changed my opinion on that. That game was great.
Yeah.
But a remake of a game, of an SNES game, I was like, well, this does feel like one of those games that is either going to be too simple or I can beat in a couple hours, and kind of took a pass on it myself.
Wait,
Yeah.
is Return to Dreamland with all the mini games?
No, that's
Oh, that's Superstar.
yeah.
Okay, I don't remember
the only
Return.
Kirby game I ever returned. It
Yeah.
just it was a bunch of mini games and I played it and I was like,
No, there was a story.
was there?
Yeah,
Is that not the one I returned then?
Is there really a story in Kirby games?
because
Yes.
there was like the one where you had to get all of the abilities, like you're running through the entire universe, and then there was like a dojo, and then like the breaking bricks, and you could like crack the earth in half.
Sounds like Street Fighter.
Oh,
Did Kirby also break a
I mean, put a
1989
headband on.
Honda Celica?
put the
On a
Ryu
dock?
headband on, and it was like,
Oh yeah, that was like his punch power, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be this person, but the Celica is a Toyota.
Oh, you're right, and I should know that. I sold Toyotas for a while.
I'm
That's-
not even a car person.
No,
but
no.
It just didn't sound right.
Shame.
I feel very ashamed of that.
But Kirby games are always fun, in my opinion, even if they're easy. I beat all of Planet Robobot without dying, but it was still a good game. But I just never died. I liked Forgotten Land. There was a point to this.
Kirby equals good.
Oh, I was gonna say there's a story to Kirby Squeak Squad.
That's a thing?
Yeah, Kirby Squeak Squad.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
What
See?
platform was this on?
3DS or GBA?
It was on DS. Yeah.
Squeak Squad.
Yeah. Kirby gets his dessert stolen by some like mice or something.
All right.
And then he basically just spends the entire game on a vengeance quest to get his cake back.
I'm just trying to picture a world in which Kirby is John Wicking his way through and killing things, but having a
It was
smile on his face.
Absolutely that, just more pink.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
got that.
Yep.
All right.
It
I
was-
do
it was a
remember
good
that
game.
on the shelves of Game Crazy.
You should play it. It was fun. It was a good game.
I did recharge my 3DS actually recently to kind of dive back into some stuff. So
Did you have to recharge it though?
No, it was at 50%.
Okay. Yeah.
I haven't used it in like 7 years or something, and it was holding a charge perfectly fine.
I have a DSi that I haven't touched in like a decade.
Yeah.
Full battery.
Yep.
Like I'll turn it on every once in a while and be like, "Yep, still alive."
Yeah.
Off.
Even the GameCube, I booted the GameCube the other day to play something, and the date was wrong. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is fine. I'll just change it real quick. 3DS? Nope. Knew exactly what today was. It was like, all right,
You turn it on and it wishes you all of the happy birthdays
That's
and
right.
Christmases it missed.
here's what you missed. End of February, we got Octopath Traveler 2, which was so good, and I have nothing but nice things to say about it. This was a colossally long game. It was number 2 on my list from Nintendo of games that I played throughout the year. 91 hours, I think, I hit in it, and I didn't technically beat it. I beat it for me. There's an ending, and then the game goes on for, I don't know, like a dozen more hours where you can do like all the secret bosses, and they're not as secret, but I tried to do the first one, mind-numbingly difficult, and I was like, I'm not having this. I'm not doing it. 91 out. I'm good. Story's done, as far as I'm concerned. But game is fantastic. Voice acting's great. Characters are great. Stories are great. It's beautiful. The soundtrack is awesome. Strong recommendation for Octopath Traveler 2.
Compared to the first one, though?
The first one, I think I put in like 15, 20 hours and was like, there's a big disconnect in this. And within the game, none of the characters talked to one another really in a meaningful way. So you're like on your adventure and you run into me and I'm like, hey, you want to join? And you're like, all right, I'm going that way anyway. And then that's pretty much the extent. Like everything was so individualized. You just happened. It was the equivalency of like being on the bus with random strangers and being like, we're all going to that restaurant. I guess we could sit together.
You want to share Uber?
And then no one talks at the table because we don't really know each other. The second game kind of solves that problem. But beautiful sprite work if you're into the 2D HD thing or HD 2D. It's a really great game. I know it was up for a couple noms this year, and it's totally warranted of it. March came with kind of a whimper. Drew, you mentioned the Resident Evil 4 remake. Not much else there. April, oh my God, there's remakes in every month, I guess.
I told you.
I know.
2023 was a year of comebacks.
Well, I don't know. Can we call this game a comeback? First on my list for April, Advance Wars 1 and 2.
It's a comeback for me because I own all 4 of them.
And this one?
I don't own them. No, there were 2 on GBA and there were 2 on DS, and I own all 4.
I very much enjoyed the one on the DS that was like the future-y kind of one. Was it like Dual Strike or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had to choose 2 captains.
Yeah, that one I really, really liked. And I don't think I ever actually played the original GBA ones.
See, this game is close to my heart because when I was a kid, I would download ROMs, and I downloaded a Game Boy version of Advanced Wars in black and white, and was playing it with Japanese. It was all Japanese. It was not translated, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was fascinated by the game. And then when Advanced Wars came out on Game Boy Advance, I was like, oh my God, this is a game I was playing like years ago, and no one knew about.
Same thing happened with me for Fire Emblem. I somehow had a Japanese cart of the original Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance, which I think was like Fire Emblem 4 in Japan or something. But I was playing that. Again, I didn't know what I was doing other than trying to hit the right attacks. I couldn't read any of the story, but I was like, this is really cool. So, Drew, why didn't you pick up this port then, this remake?
It's the same thing with like Return to Dreamland and like a lot of these games on here is just cost. Like, I don't want to purchase it for it to sit on my shelf as much as I want to own it.
But you wouldn't replay it?
I invested so much time in the other ones that I like actually went through and beat them all.
Yeah.
That I don't think I'd have the time to go through Advanced Wars 1 and Advanced Wars 2 and complete it in as I did and would want to.
I think that's the risk you run when you remaster anything, is that you're going to get a huge part of the population that says, oh, I played that game, I don't need to play it again, so I'm good. So I don't know if, and it's kind of a shame because that is a franchise as a great kind of, not throwback, but dig for Nintendo to say, hey, we have all these IPs that haven't done anything in a while, so what can we bring to the foreground with our massive Switch install base to say, hey, play this, and if it does well enough, maybe we can warrant looking into future releases that are original. I don't know if this one sold really well. They kind of butchered the release of it, saying, hey, it's coming out, and then they delayed it.
That was due to like
Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
And I guess that makes sense, even though they weren't very clear on like why, but they also didn't give a future date for it, and then they just kind of dropped it in the spring with little to no fanfare. So I think it may have had a chance, but I don't know. I don't know if this is a franchise that we see ever again, sadly. They didn't make it. They published it. I think it was Way Forward that did it.
Does an excellent job in all their games. And honestly, this is what we talked about last time, is like Metroid Dread has that new engine. Like, if they were to make Advanced Wars 3 with what they put out, because it looks great. Like,
right.
I like the style and the overlay. Like, I would buy Advanced Wars 3 if they made it.
I think I'd get the 1 and 2 remake. I'm waiting for a little sale price. I think that's one of those games where I was like, I don't need to play it right now, so I'll wait
See, that's a thing with this year is I don't think games go on sale enough anymore. Like when you and I worked for a video game store, like things went down and up and fluctuated. Like now things will like go on sale for like a week and then they'll just stay at $60. And it's like I will never buy this game for whatever reason because like
I know it dropped to a certain price.
we talked about like Dragon Quest 11. Like I want Dragon Quest 11 really badly. I missed a chance at one point when it was like $40 and that game is how many years old and it's still $60. Like games don't drop in value.
No, and Nintendo games especially so. Even though that is a game you can get on other platforms, probably for a lot cheaper. So if you weren't dependent on it being on one platform,
It's true.
But
like the Switch is the game console that I want to like spend the most amount of hours on. So,
yeah,
like, it's the portable system and the home entertainment system. Like if I'm going to travel somewhere, I want to be playing a game. So I want to make sure I own the physical copy on Switch.
yeah. I've actually been leaning that way a lot too, if only because the OS makes it so easy to get in and out of stuff or just suspend without needing to save that it's like I'm purchasing stuff for the Switch that is on Game Pass, but I'm just like, nah, I don't want to boot the Xbox and deal with their cluster F of an operating system and stuff. Even with the PlayStation, it's pretty exclusively driven. So we passed on that one. Dead Island 2 is a game you mentioned earlier to me that you bought and had immediate regrets with.
Yeah, I bought it when it was on sale during Thanksgiving, and then I put it in, and it doesn't have the same charm as the first one.
Was that also one of those games that they're like, hey, we have a sequel, and that was like 10 years ago? Like that one's been in development for a while.
It has. They put out a couple of, it was like Dead Island, then it was like Dead Island Riptide, and then they were like, the sequel's coming out, and it took, I want to say, easily 10 years for them to complete it. I don't know, it opens up, and it's just like, you're in a plane, and then the plane crashes, and you somehow survive. And then all these other people are like, I'm a rich person in LA, like, let me go to your... You're not even on an island. Let's just state that. You're in LA. You're
Dead
not on
too.
an island. Yeah. But this, like, actress is like, I'm gonna go to my house. Like, if you survive, come to there, and we have a bunch of survivors. And, like, you get bitten, and then wake up, and, like, every once in a while you get this, like, zombie rage, but you're somehow immune, but you're not, and, like, the story goes from there. But the first one opened up, and it was, like, very open.
Yeah.
Like, it was like...
You're on a resort, right?
Yeah, it was like Dead Rising more, where, like, you could venture where you want, but there was, like, a wall where the story had to advance.
Okay.
And, like, now you're, like, very enclosed. You're, like, in this house, and you're doing quests around this house first. And then I don't know if it opens up further there, but I just was like, this is
So
not as
seemingly
fun.
they took everything from the first game they did right and said, we're going to do the opposite
10 years later.
10 years later.
Plus 10 years later, I think,
Right.
easily. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. No thanks. Pass on that one for me. Star Wars Jedi Survivor was a sequel to Jedi something else. I don't know. The kid from
Yeah,
Click
Fallen
or
Order.
whatever it was. Fallen Order, yes. That was the original Jedi Survivor sequel there. This seemed like a Dark Souls light to me, and I tried the first one 3 times and was like, nah, I'm good.
The first one was Dark Souls Light. This one is not.
Was it good?
Yeah, I put a lot of hours into it.
Okay.
The only thing I wished it was that it had more end game. Like after you beat the story, there's like bounties. You're like a mercenary at one point. And
Yeah.
like someone's paying you to get these bounties. But it was a great game. It would have been up there. It would have been more like memorable if they had added more after the fact.
Well, that after the fact's kind of tough. Joe, are you an end game kind of person? Are you like, hey, I beat this and there's still stuff to do, so I'm going to do it? Or do you tend to say, I'm good, we'll shelve it, and if I get back to it, I get back to it?
I want to be an end game kind of person.
Okay.
I really do, because there are a lot of games that like I enjoy. And
I asked this question, so I didn't mean to cut you off. I just asked this question because we're going to get to May, and May had one of the biggest releases of the year with copious amounts of content.
I
So
don't know what that could be.
it's one of the 2 games Joe played. But sorry, go ahead.
Beat.
Beat. Right.
Completed. I there are a lot of games that I'll play, and I'm like, I want to keep playing this. Like, I'm sad that the game is going to end, and that's why I'll put the end of some games off, and then I'll get to the end of it and say, I can play more, and then put it down, and then just pick something else up. Like I just that once you've gotten to the primary end of the game, you kind of lose that urge to go back into it because you're like there are other games I can be playing. Yeah, and I don't want to jump into the things that like I didn't like about that game. There's I don't know, the obligation to it is over. As weird as that is.
No, that's not weird at all. I agree with you there.
Yeah, right. So like that's what happened with Mario. Like I played Mario for a little bit. After I finished, it was like, oh, I'm gonna go back and complete some of these levels, and then couldn't complete some of them, and then like I picked it up twice after I completed it, and I haven't really picked it up again since.
Is it the bonus levels?
The special world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We love me some special world.
That jump into the beat one
Ugh.
keeps getting me in the same spot. The same spot every time.
All right, hold that thought because we're gonna spend a little extra time on Mario later.
Okay.
Because we have some business to take care of with it.
Oh, I know I do.
Yeah. All right. So May comes along, and we get the game that everyone wants to play: Lord of the Rings Gollum. I don't know who made this. I don't know why they made it. I feel like they made it as a joke. This was one of those meme games that I think only got publicity because of how awful it was, and rightfully so.
I think they were trying for what's the game called? It's called Styx, where you're the goblin and you're trying to sneak around. I'll have to look it up.
I don't know. There's a lot of...
There's a game very similar to it that is good, and then this came out, but it is licensed and is terrible.
Yeah.
Are we talking about sneaking again?
No, we are not talking about Sneak King, but this game does have some sneaking, and it
Well, then
fails
I'm out.
miserably on all fronts. Sneak King did a better job of the sneaking in Lord of the
Boy,
Rings
is that
Gollum.
depressing.
Yeah, all right. And we're also going to brush off Redfall because that was a hype game that came out and was just a train wreck also from a technical standpoint that pretty much made it unplayable. But no, May was home to IGN's Game of the Year and the Best Action Adventure Game award winner for the Game Awards, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This game was just insane and amazing, and I arguably think one of the best games ever made.
We could also talk about it for a collective 500 hours amongst us. How long did it take you?
I stopped counting, but I'm pretty sure I broke 200.
Did you really? I was
think so.
keeping an eye on your stats because I was
Were
like,
you?
Joe's getting close to me, and then I think you did surpass, but
If I'm not at 200, then I've got to be at like 185, 190, something like that.
that's pretty impressive. I
What
think
were you at?
It's not impressive. That's sad.
No, it's not.
no,
I don't
it's
have that
it's
kind of
not
time.
because
Yeah, but that game has so much content.
Yeah, it does.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, I think I'm at 161 hours. That was my thing from Nintendo, and like I said, I played Octopath for 91, which is not nothing, and I think my replay of Persona 5 Royal also clocked in at shy of 100 hours. So there's 3 games that I put over 300 hours in. The difference being is that, well, Octopath is a better comparison. That game got to a point where I was like, I'm ready for this to be over. And it kept going. And it wasn't bad. It was more of the same, and it was still intriguing, but like I just wanted... Zelda never felt like that. I think I hit 100 hours and was like, I don't feel like I've scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind the continuation of, okay... The only reason why I pushed myself a little bit towards the end was because I told myself I need to beat this game before the summer's over and the school year starts. When I played the Switch for 8 hours, I couldn't have had that game sit for a month. So it was in my best interest to get it done with. But that game did so many things right. I loved it. I loved it.
I am continuously impressed by the amount of stuff that they put into it that didn't quite feel shoehorned in. Like, it just... I don't know. This is one of the largest games ever created on the Switch too. Like,
Yeah, right?
the fact that one of the biggest games that has ever come out is on the Switch, but like, yeah, it really was done super well. You can get through the majority of the game without loading screens. You can actually be in the sky and jump down to the depths without
Oh my God,
a
the
loading
depths.
screen. Yeah, without a loading screen. Except if you like dove so you went faster, you could actually temporarily soft lock the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did it a couple times because it doesn't have time to load quickly enough. And the first time I did it was like, did I freeze the game? This is the first time it's glitched on me. And I stared at it for like 10 seconds, and all of a sudden I was moving again. It just, I dove from the cloud to the center of the earth.
Surprised you didn't have a blood moon in the process.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, those do come a little bit often, but like that's one of my only like gripes, that it kind of like halts the game for a second to make you skip that cutscene. But that's not a huge gripe considering everything that goes on in that game.
Yeah, I don't think I had one technical issue at all.
Yeah,
the
mine was
entire
just
time.
moving too quickly. But yeah, like it ran way smoother than like Pokemon did.
It ran way smoother
the
than
first
Breath
one.
of the Wild.
Yeah. Well, Breath of the Wild was a port, which is probably why it wasn't like
Fair
super
enough.
optimized. But considering how much larger this game is, it is impressive how well optimized it is. There's only like a few spots where I had frame drops. It wasn't super common.
Right. Yeah.
Breath of the Wild was a port?
Yeah, it was originally developed for the Wii U,
Oh, I didn't know.
and then they Twilight Princessed it, where they said, and it's gonna be on both, but we're really doing one first. So I think like the Wii U version of Breath of the Wild is kind of a collector's item because there's just wasn't a lot of copies in print. So if you come across one, it's not super expensive. Could be worth a hold.
I'm pretty sure it runs even worse.
Oh, I'm sure. And
Like-
you have to play it on a gamepad, so
Yeah, there's that.
yeah. So June, heart of the summer, Street Fighter 6, which won Best Fighting Game at the Game Awards. There's actually like legit contention for this because Mortal Kombat 1 also came out. I'm surprised Street Fighter took the crown, but both games really well received. I'm not a fighting game person other than Smash Brothers. It's just, I don't know. I don't get my money's worth out of those type of games, but we're going to ignore Everybody 1-2 Switch because that was a game Nintendo shouldn't have made. Because that came out in June as well. In fact, that was a game they did make, and they said, this is so bad that we're not going to put it out. And then like a year later, they put it out for some reason, and nobody liked it at all. But the other two heavy hitters this month, Drew, I know these were games that you sunk a lot of time into, Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, and both of these I didn't sink a lot of time in until the summer when we were done teaching.
Sure.
But yeah, it was like a toss-up of like, do I want to play Tears of the Kingdom? Do I want to play Final Fantasy 16? Do I want to play Diablo 4? And at first, Diablo 4 had some issues, which Blizzard always has.
They
some
always have.
terrible issues with their games when
Yeah.
they come out. So I really didn't get into it until July when they fixed a few things.
Okay.
And Final Fantasy 16, I'm going to talk about again more later, but I didn't want it at first. Because I think the aesthetic and where the like world we were in was like different than what I was used to with like 10, 11, 10, 12, and 13.
It's definitely closer to 10 than it is, 13 for sure.
I think it's more like closer to 15, which I didn't enjoy 15, and I think that's what turned me off. 15 was the royal one where he's the prince.
Oh, yeah.
and you have
I
to
think
get
that
to
has
the
the best, one of the best openings in a video game ever.
Yeah,
that
like,
scene was great.
The opening is great.
I enjoyed it. I never finished it because but I liked that concept of just like, you really did feel like you're just traveling around with your friends and doing stuff. I didn't get to the back half of the game where it actually like opened up story wise, but
So yeah, this was another game like as soon as there was a discount, I bought it, and then I was like, I should have bought this earlier.
yeah, you kind of sold me on it because I had eyed it and then it came out and I heard, I mean, it reviewed well, but general commotion around it was that it wasn't super great. And you were praising the combat, saying the combat was so good.
Yeah, it's very smooth, like open world, and the enemies are there. And as soon as you walk within a vicinity, they aggro, and you just go in. And then once the thing is done, they give you the experience, and you walk on. Like,
Yeah.
there isn't ever the old school fashion where like, oh, let me load
The
into this
transition
battle.
menu where
Yeah.
something happens and the music cues up and whatnot.
Because
Yeah.
like 13 was like that.
Yes.
13 had a similar combat system where you had to like combo off of your different classes or whatever it was,
Right.
and then like unload back into the world. So yeah, I invested a lot of time in this, and I feel like you get invested in the characters very early, and I think that's what like kept drawing me in.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. I was a little stunned at about a third of the way through, maybe half of the way through, when one of the major characters goes away, and I'm just like, like they were the most likable, personable character.
And it was the best
'Cause-
iteration of that character.
Yeah, because as the main character, your character actually is kind of just boring. He's very bland, very stoic, and kind of does the right thing, but in a like, he always has to do it because it's just, and he wants to make sure you know that. But there's enough like intertwining of characters that I think is interesting. Joe, you looked like you wanted to chime in about it.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna point out that like that's as I got older, that's what kind of pulled me out of RPGs because I played a lot of them as a kid, and then got older and like didn't want to wait for those transitions in and out of battles because you just sit there like spamming the A button or something to try and get through them. And I think that's also what drove me to Chrono Trigger so much, because it had that kind of battle system where like you'd just walk up to enemies and the battle would start.
Right.
And then the battle was over. You would like everybody would do their quick victory thing. You would see how much like experience you got and then just keep walking. It was super simple like that. But yeah, like trying to get back into RPGs when I got older, I couldn't do it. That transition just slowed me down, and especially when you only have so long to play a game. Like
Right.
And then, to add, like you said with Fire Emblem, like voice acting is a whole nother thing, because I completely agree with you. Like there are some RPGs that I can never play again because it's just like I gotta skip through all this dialogue. But if you're talking to me, I'm at least more engaged than me reading some subtitles of your silent character.
I like the combination. I like the VO with the voice boxes. One, because you typically will get, well, I guess Final Fantasy a little bit different, but I guess a lot of the retro-inspired RPGs are like, here's the anime version of this character with their dialogue box, and I can read it, and sometimes I'm like, I don't want to, like, I can read faster than you can talk, and I like the option to kind of read through and go, okay, I can skip some of this dialogue if I really want to, so I can progress a little faster. But no, you're right, and I can give you some good recommendations of games that are turn-based but do that transition really well.
Okay.
I'm playing Star Ocean now, and it does it just well enough where it's not a pain in the butt, but it does take like a half second longer than I'd like loading out of it to get back. I'm like, that's the one area where I think that can improve. But no, and then Final Fantasy 16 is just, you're right, the characters aggro, and when you revisit old areas, they aggro even though they are like 1,000 levels beneath you, and it's kind of obnoxious, I think. That and some of the bigger characters just take forever to bring down.
I'm pretty sure you can run out of the battle.
I just get in the chocobo and try and outrun them, and then hopefully they don't follow. So yeah, no, that game is great. I'm chipping away at it slowly, but hopefully in the next few weeks I'll be able to put it on the shelf and say it's good. July came and went with one game that, Joe, we talked about this actually a little bit. Pikmin 4. Which won Best Sim Strategy Game at the Game Awards. Good for it. This was a game I didn't have any interest in initially, but has been talked about so highly that I feel like I do need to give this game a go at some point. I think it fixes all the real-time strategy issues and time management issues that the first couple games have, and is just really smart with its level design. I want to give this one a go. This is one that I'm going to try and track down later and see, hey, is this worth all that hype? Because I think it could be.
Yeah.
And I think it was the best-selling Pikmin game of all of them. I think it beat out all of them combined, actually.
It's another situation of like 10 years has elapsed. So do you want to invest again into this series that like you had high hopes for back in the day, and now you're like, do I pick this up and is it going to be as good? I mean, it's Nintendo. Of course it is. But
I mean, I think so, because it is Miyamoto's kind of brainchild. And I think our conversation last time, Joe, was like, this is a franchise that exists because this legend at this company that still works there is like, no, we're going to keep making Pikmin. And Nintendo's like, fine, Miyamoto, give us a Mario and you can do whatever else you want, right? But like Pikmin has kind of been a pretty common staple amongst a lot of the brand appeal, I guess. Like you see them in marketing materials and on billboard, like not just the game itself, but the characters themselves have kind of become fairly normalized as a recognition of the company. So I think,
yeah, like Olimar being in Smash.
Right. August, tail end of the summer, we got some big stuff. Baldur's Gate, depending on how you speak to, came out on the PC. This was a game that released 3 separate times over the course of the year.
Wait, is that how you spell it? Have I been misspelling it this entire time?
I mean, it is underlined in the rundown, so I probably spelt it incorrectly. No. Anyway, that game came out. That was the Game of the Year at the Game Awards. No. Gigantic. This is a role playing RPG, Drew?
Yeah, it's
Fairly-
Dungeons and Dragons
Okay.
made super super well, and there's so much gameplay in it that you could probably buy this game if you were in that type of area. Like I run the Dungeons Dragon Club at school, and all the kids are like, this is exactly what I've needed my entire life. They're 14 years of life, but, and that they can play for years to come.
Yeah, you should show them the original text-based versions of the Dungeons and Dragons game. See how they like that, or if they can even read.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I've been told this is the most realized version of like every Dungeons and Dragons campaign that you can ever want to be in at one time. And I don't know much about it, so I don't want to
It's
speak.
just very interesting. Like the way they made this game is like so open ended. Like you can
So-
do what you want.
Right. So like there's a path that you can take to get to the end while ignoring a large percentage of other options and stories and stuff. So replay wise, you can never do the same thing twice.
And then the RNG of rolling dice.
Okay. So
That's
game
on
of the
Christmas
year,
list.
game of the year by the Game Awards. That seems like a deserving title to win it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Armored Core 6, which won Best Action Game at the Game Awards. Yeah, that's from Software, right?
Yeah, and
Alright.
you know how much a glutton I am for punishment when it comes to Dark Souls and From Software.
Yeah. Well, I heard if that's your kind of game, it's very awesome for those thinking that they were going to, hey, that looks cool, I'm going to try it out. Probably were severely disappointed, but I'm curious to hear what you think of it. I hope it's right up your alley. And then Sea of Stars was an indie title that got a lot of eyes praise early on when it was released as kind of a Chrono Trigger-esque tribute. Didn't play it. Wanted to. End of the summer. Couldn't happen. You jumped into it a little bit, Drew, right?
I downloaded it day one, and I was traveling to California to
Right.
see my brother, and that's what I was playing on the plane. And you can feel the Chrono Trigger in it. It looks glorious. The like hand-drawn sprites and everything. The combat's excellent. It's just that's one of those games I think we're gonna talk about later. That is my best game that I didn't finish.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list, and it will get downloaded to the Switch at some point. Or I'll boot up the Xbox and play it on Game Pass, because I don't utilize that enough, and it expires soon. All right, September, big one. I don't want to spend too much time on Starfield, because I know none of us played it. Oh, you did play it?
Yeah, because when you told me it was on Game Pass,
Yes,
signed
I
up for Game Pass.
pre-downloaded it.
Purposely signed up for Game Pass for a month to try out Starfield.
And what were your thoughts?
I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I think a lot of people ended up being disappointed, but that's okay. If you loved it, great. If you didn't, also cool. That's what games are for. Joe, did you get into any of the Pokemon Scarlet Violet DLC?
No, not the DLC.
Okay, well, the first pack of that came out in September. So did Lies of P, Mortal Kombat 1, Cyberpunk DLC, which won Best Ongoing Game at the Game Awards, which is actually kind of cool because they usually give that to like games as service games, Final Fantasy Online, Apex Legends, all that stuff. So it was kind of nice to see like a single player story driven game.
Well, it was riddled when it came out
Oh,
originally.
no, it was. It was
So
a disaster.
it needed this.
And the DLC supposedly is excellent. And then F-Zero 99, a little freebie from Nintendo to say, hey, remember this series that we ignored for 2 decades? We still think about it. I'm hoping that this is a to people like this, because we'll make another one if you do kind of thing. I don't know.
There were a bunch of people
they'll
on
just disappoint you.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people on Twitch who were enjoying it, and I was watching, and they were like top of leaderboards. But I don't know how many. Like, again, it's the last iteration of F-Zero was on
GameCube.
GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was awesome.
yeah. But
Heck, port that, remaster that. Give me that.
well, 2024 might have 3 times as many remakes.
It's a strong possibility. All right, Sonic Frontiers also came out in September, which is super confusing because in October we get a game called Sonic Superstars, and I think Sonic is now entering the Weezer era of its game development cycle, where like you blink and you're like, oh, I didn't know Weezer put out another album, but there it is, and that's what Sonic is doing right now. So I guess good for it. Assassin's Creed Mirage, Wargroove 2, Detective Pikachu, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, which won Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, and Best Art Direction at the Game Awards. I got to play this game.
I'm excited to get into it. I
Yeah.
really like the first one.
I picked up the first one
It's so
to
good.
play to get ready for the second one. I'm a little bummed the second one is digital only. If I can get through the first one, I would really like to check this out because I've heard nothing but excellent things.
This is my number 2 on my wish list.
Okay.
Did either of you play Control?
Yes.
Not for more than a couple minutes.
Repeat that?
Not for
Into the microphone, though. Repeat it into the microphone.
Not for more than a couple of
Oh,
minutes.
okay. Because the gameplay is great.
Yeah.
And then the
Yes.
story actually is the same universe as Alan Wake a little bit. And just whatever that company's doing, like direction-wise, is genius.
Top notch. Yeah. Mario Wonder also came out in October, and I want to take a quick pause, even though we're running super long. A couple episodes ago, Joe, Ada, and I did a tier list of our Mario games. And now that we've all completed Mario Wonder, I think we should revisit that and figure out, okay, where in that tier list is that going to go?
Am I Ada in this story?
Sure.
Yes.
'Cause I was not there.
And I don't even 100% agree with this list, but Joe and Ada twisted my arm in some occasions. Our S tier Mario games, Super Mario World, Mario Odyssey, Mario 64, and the original Mario Brothers. A tier was Galaxy 2, Yoshi's Island, Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario 3D World, and Bowser's Fury. And I'll just do the B tier because I think Wonder is going to be above C. Super Mario Galaxy, New Super Mario Brothers, Mario Sunshine, New Super Mario Bros. DS. Where would you throw Mario Wonder on this list?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely more than a C. So like, I agree with you there. I could probably be convinced, but I'm probably gonna go with A. Because at parts I was like, yeah, this game is fine, and then at other parts it gave me like strong memories of Super Mario World,
Okay,
which was nice.
it's never a bad thing.
No, not at all. I love that game. Oddly enough, considering I'm bad at Mario games, I still felt that this one was too easy most of the time.
But
Like-
you didn't beat the Secret World.
Okay,
So how could you say that?
That's different. Overall, I think a lot. Like, I didn't have trouble with too many of the levels, and a lot of them, even the ones that I did, like, I might get stuck on it for like 2 passes, and the third time I would just blow right through it. Outside of the special world, we're not counting that. A lot of the levels were pretty easy, and I could have gone for a little bit more of a challenge, but at the same time, as I'm getting older, having less of a challenge can be fun because sometimes I just don't want to be stuck on a level. I just want to
Right.
get past it so I can play the rest of the game. But I mean, I'd still say like an A at minimum. It still was a very fun game, still enjoyable. Like, didn't feel like a chore. I even by the time I completed the actual story, went back and got the rest of the seeds that I was missing. So again, except for the ones in the special world, still fighting with that. But I went back and got all of the rest of them. I mean, I had most of them, so it didn't take me too long. It's
Right.
not like I had to like put an extra, 2 or 3 weeks into the game. But I spent a few days going back and just collecting the last few that I needed. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I think it's a good game. I'll give it an A.
Okay. And this was, if you missed the call earlier or it didn't record correctly, this was Ada's game of the year. So Joe says A. Ada would probably say S tier. Drew, where do you put it?
I'm going with Joe, putting it in an A. I might say an A minus, but we don't do
Really?
that. Yeah, it was easy, but again, this is a new iteration to try and bring in kids of the next generation to enjoy Mario, to hopefully build off of somehow. I mean, they built off of New Super Mario Brothers for
Way
far too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all, like we talked about, all of the enemies felt very fresh. I enjoyed their concepts, and I'd like to see them more.
Right.
And I'd like them to build off of it. We talked about Super Mario Maker 3, which you said will never come out. But even the challenging levels, like I'm at 99.9%,
Oh my god.
and I will never get the last 0.1% because the very last level is a marathon of all the badges.
Yeah. A and an A minus. I'll be the guy. I'm doing it. I'm putting it in the S tier. I think it's the best 2D Mario we've had in a very long time. I think our S tier is slightly oversaturated, but I'm not going to bring up that argument
To
again.
be fair, the market of Mario games is pretty saturated, so
Well, but
they've got to go somewhere.
either 3D platformers or just 2D platformers. I think when you boil it down to that, not just Mario. But no, I thought this game was pretty much just joy from beginning to end. And the level design was sharp. Like there wasn't a level that I didn't feel at one point was like, wow, this was really clever. Like it was really smart. And that's a game, yeah, you probably throw in the, okay, I got a weekend, I can go through this again, right, every now and then. Because, even the Super Mario World, which I think is the best one of all time, I'll go back and replay. This can kind of be in that category. Doesn't have the nostalgia yet, but it'll get there. All right, that was a very long aside. Thanks, gents, on that. November gave us WarioWare, Persona 5 Tactica, Super Mario RPG, which we talked about a little bit at the start of the show, and Star Ocean, the second story R. I didn't get into WarioWare and Persona 5 Tactica. I'm in the midst of playing now. It's not catching me as much as it did initially, but I do like tactics games, so I'm sure I'll see that one through. The cast is great. December gave us not much at all. Pokemon DLC, the second wave, and Mike's favorite game, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties Definitive Edition, which was put out by Limited Run Games.
I really thought you guys were joking when you said that to me.
Nope.
I can't believe that's real.
All right, so that's going to do it for part one of our end of the year episode. We ran a little long talking about our year together, and so it only made sense that we split some of that into a second episode that will be released very shortly. Look forward to our awards that we give out to certain games, our game of the year. We play a little game of the year and have a couple yucks along the way. Thank you, Joe and Drew, for being here. Hey, we'll see you in the next episode. Part 2 is coming soon. Stay tuned.